Dan Wilkins from Melbourne Cycling League says, do you think a six-pack was insufficient for viewing, from a viewing perspective, for a 24-hour event?
Yeah, I think you guys are a joke. Seriously, the fact that you didn't bring a keg, you know, on the back of one of the bikes, I think the six-pack, I saw the video, your video, and I thought that was awesome, by the way, to see what was going on behind the scenes, and for him to be chugging down his first beer, I don't know, what, 6 o'clock or something like that, and then handing beers out to people. You know, what I'm disappointed about Dan is he never offered me one during that 24-hour period.
Morning guys, Thursday here in Melbourne. I know how I start every vlog off with how awesome the weather is, but when you live in Melbourne, you really appreciate the good weather, the good days. Get your rig out, wear a t-shirt, life's good, you know. So, as I discussed on social media the other day, I said I was going to speak with Drew Ginn and do a post-Ginn 24-hour interview just to see how he pulled up. Just ask him some questions on the actual ride, and I posted it on Instagram, so a lot of you guys put some questions up. Thank you for that. I'll ask him a few of those questions, and it should be a good interview. So I'm just riding over to meet him now. There's a really good cafe that I'm going to meet Drew on right now. Awesome, awesome coffee. It's called Dr. Jekyll.
What motivated you to start this, and really in a nutshell, why did you do it?
Yeah, look, I probably, the way I can explain that is, I suppose the terminology I'm using in my mind, because this is a reflection, is that it's almost like a triple thread of motivation. And I think that's my answer to how to get through this sort of stuff. Is the individual stuff for me was the personal challenge and what I would learn myself, either in the training, through the effort, and that's all the skills and all the knowledge and everything you can bring to it, but you learn in there. The other part was then the connecting to the team around me, you know, and having a small group who really help you through and you feel a part of. And then the bigger picture was, you know, to a cure and the cause and the meaning of all that sort of thing. So, you know, having lost my mum to cancer, it was a big thing for me to, you know, always I'd thought about for many years that I wanted to do something for cancer and make a difference. And it's not like I haven't been able to think about that over the years, but I just felt it was time, you know? And to put those three things together, that for me was the strength of what it was, you know. Hard to describe, but I think a few people looked at me when I first described doing the effort, and I said, oh, I'm doing it for charity, and they go, oh yeah, but everyone does something for charity. But I think when people actually understood that I'd lost my mum to cancer, lots of family and friends, as we all know, are being affected by it, and they went, shit, he's actually serious about that. And then when I went, well, I want to put a team together, not to make it perfect, but have that real connection, so the group that supported me on the track, and then I've just learned heaps out of it, you know. And so, you know, that feeling of developing new skills and knowledge, combining that with all the other parts, you know, that was the reason why. If
you had your time again, would you do it again?
Yeah.
Or would you do anything differently?
Yeah, well, yeah, well, this is interesting. I've got to let my body heal first. If my wife was sitting here, she'd be going, shut the fuck up, don't say anything. I'm going to do it again if everything repair-wise is fine. And there's things that we would improve. I mean, for me, the first 6 hours I went too fast, really, and rode the track inefficiently. And there's a couple of data points that make that really clear as an understanding. I'd ridden by 100 k's, I'd ridden 11 k's further on the GPS, and GPS is not perfect on a circular track, I get that, but I was riding wide off the blue line, and the blue line's not even the surveyed line, it's 20 centimetres from the inside edge, you know, and one of the corners was impossible to get to the edge, and the other corner you could get actually inside it, you know. And so for me it was like, well, I'm riding long here, and I've just spent all this energy, and I've gone and put too much energy into that. So the first 6 hours I'd be more conservative. Food, Yeah, I think it'd just be fluid diet. Soup was really good, chalky milks were really good, water was really good.
Yeah.
The solid foods ended up being really problematic, and eating too much too soon was an issue.
Yep.
The track surface, I loved Brunswick. It was awesome to do it there, and but the actual surface made it really hard. And even bike setup. You know, I was still tweaking the bike, you know, the night before. And I wouldn't say I was confident that I got everything right on the bike. And so much so, like the pads on my forearm, I'd flatten the aluminium out because I didn't want edges. You know, during the ride, I spun around the gel pad because it had flattened on one side and I was no longer getting protection, I was hitting the bar. So there's lots of little things that you do differently, but they're all just minor tweaks that might give you 10 Ks each, you know, so.
Yep. Scott Cunningham on Twitter said, he asked, you know, if you were actually going for the world record, which you've answered, but he said, why did you know, considering the wind, because it was quite a windy day, and considering the velodrome, did you think about doing it at a you know, an indoor velodrome? And you know, considering the wind, would you have done it, rescheduled it, or?
Oh, you could do, but ultimately in 24 hours, the wind's going to be what it is, you know. And so the interesting part with the wind was the forecast was looking like it was going to drop, and it was going to become perfect for pretty much most of the 24 hours. So let's be honest, looking at the forecast, it was like you couldn't ask for much better. You get, what, 3 hours into it, and it just starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger. It's from southwest, and I'm sitting there going, rat, how is this? Okay, and I'm going to my support crew, Glenn, the leader, mate, what's happening with this weather? Now, he thought I was asking whether or not it was going to rain. So the typical thing is he's going, it's not going to rain, it's not going to rain. I'm going, that's not what I mean. Heck's going to happen with this wind, you know. So I had, I think, 2 hours where I was sitting there going, well, if this wind stays in, and to give you the idea, so that track has an uphill and a downhill. It's about 1 metre and a bit, was surveyed. So on the uphill, into that southwesterly wind, I'm doing 400 watts. And on the downhill, I'm obviously doing 300 watts. So I had 2 hours there where I was averaging 350 plus to hold that sort of speed. And I'm looking down going, oh, I'm just working way too hard here. But I couldn't work out a way not to work hard like that, given what the wind was. So yeah, you could have rescheduled. But in my mind, it was like, well, I'm committed to doing this thing now. I'm committed to starting at 2 o'clock, no matter what. And the rules do stipulate that you can start a day before, a day after. But that was less important as to just getting on with it and just knowing that the conditions would chop and change in 24 hours anyway.
Where's the next venue you've got in mind? Would you do it on an indoor track?
Oh, look, I think I love Melbourne. Yeah, and I love the feeling of the cycling scene down here, and so I'd rather stick to being able to do it in Melbourne and know that you can get family and friends and all that sort of stuff around easily enough. The natural thing is to do it at Darebin and go indoors. You know, I'd love it if Brunswick was resurfaced. I looked at Coburg. Coburg's surface not too bad, but it's up on top of a hill, so I reckon that's a nightmare up there. And Brunswick had that really cool aesthetic feel about it. And it had that rawness. You know, for me, it could easily become a bit of a carnival festival sort of spot. But if I was having a honest sort of reflection about having a crack at 900, then you'd go indoors and you'd do it on a wood surface.
So we'll move on to some of the Instagram questions. Case KW says, how long did you sleep for after?
My wife was a bit surprised that night that I was still awake at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Were you?
Yeah, but I was struggling on the couch. I'd had a little doze in the afternoon. And between the dogs and the kids, I think I got the full 12 hours, pretty much. But it was actually, my wife said to me I was very restless during the night, that first night. I didn't notice it. Second night, I noticed that I was very restless, so the body was just going through all sorts of healing and recovery. But even yesterday, I got to sort of mid-afternoon and I was cactus, couldn't get my eyes open, so I ended up having 2 or 3 hours and still went to bed at sort of 10 o'clock. So I feel like I'm catching up on sleep, not just in one hit.
Did you have any more beers that night?
I had a 3 when I got home, and I was having a glass of water in between each one, and I could feel a headache coming on. I'm hungover already.
Jamie H said, did you have any post 24-hour ride depression?
Well, look, I actually had probably 48 hours afterwards. I was like, oh, I want to get out and bike. when I was laying there not moving, then as soon as I moved, I went, no, I'll get out of the bike.
Yeah.
The euphoria of completing the ride and the buzz of the crowd and all that sort of stuff, yeah, like it was a bit of a letdown, you know, the next day, afternoon or whatever it was. What I found encouraging was I was conscious of, there was a number of people online that I felt I wanted to go back and say thanks to and all that sort of stuff. So that probably kept me engaged, whereas if I think I had been just sitting around by myself, then I probably would have felt, you know, a bit isolated, you know, but yeah, having stuff to do the next couple of days made a big difference. I'm getting ready for a US trip, so I've had lots to get done before going for that.
Are you taking the bike over?
No, because I'm not there very long.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to take the bike over.
Yeah.
Got to work out some sort of device where I can just exercise while I'm sitting on the plane.
Mate, there's a business idea for you. Let's work on something. Bike France says, what and when was the hardest part?
There was lots of parts, but probably the thing that I've found myself reflecting on since a lot was probably 5 hours to 4 hours to go, and I think that felt like the longest hour of my life. And there's a couple of factors. One is because I started thinking about I was close to the end, and I started associating with rides down to Portsea and back, going 5 hours, it's only Portsea and back. And as soon as I started doing that, the pain increased. So the pain was no different body-wise, but my reflection or capturing the information in my body was huge. And I was like, far out. I started thinking about stuff that I hadn't been thinking about, and that just made the whole thing drag on for about an hour. Once I was through that, it was actually pretty good. But yeah, I remember vividly. And the other part too was 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning where I'm going, oh shit, I've still got 6 hours to go, 8 hours to go, that sort of stuff. And that was just mentally hard because they're still long rides by themselves.
Yeah. And how was that last hour?
Awesome.
Yeah.
The last, I mean, you were there.
Yeah.
Those who were there, I mean, I've been a part of Olympic events and World Championship events, and probably I associate it with it as a good a feeling as what I've had finishing off Olympic Games and winning. Like it was such a buzz and rewarding because you'd spent yourself pretty much completely, and you were able to find a little bit to go faster. And particularly that last 30 minutes, what I was thinking, 40 minutes to go, I had a quick piss stop, finally was able to have a piss. That was hard to do, by the way. But when I got going again, I was like, 40 minutes to go, I'm going to build up, do whatever I can. And then all of a sudden I had this moment about 20, I've gone too hard too soon, I'm going to fall over here. And in the last 15, it was just like I'm just riding this wave of energy with the group. And I'm looking down going, I can hardly keep my head up, so that was hard. You know, I'm sitting there going, I can hardly see the board, I can hardly see what's going on, but I hear the crowd and I'm like, I know the corners, so I'm fine now. And then a couple of times I sort of glanced at the board and I'm going, 41.5k average lap, that's all right. Just keep chasing that. So, yeah, that was a huge buzz.
Yeah. So you could obviously feel the crowd just amping up.
Yeah. And I think you ride the emotion of it all. And it was interesting talking to Jesse about this, Jesse Carlson, who won the Trans Am, and that whole thing of some of the endurance riders saying with their support crew, knowing that there's a lot more to go even when they think there's nothing to go. You know? And so, you know, at 2 hours to go, I thought that I was on my limit. And then all of a sudden, 40 minutes to go, you realise, well, you can actually tap in further. I think I couldn't have tapped in further for much longer. But that whole thing of just lifting with the crowd was fantastic.
Yeah. We saw the ride on Strava. How the hell did you keep that Garmin battery going?
The old Strava trick. There's been a lot of experimentation over the last 2 years trying to work that stuff out. It's a 500. I previously had the one before the 500 or whatever it was. Oh, it's 510, sorry. So I had a 500. You plug the 500 in, it'd delete the file and turn off. It'd charge, but everything was gone. The 510, what I had was a little battery pack. I think 3,000 milliamp battery pack. Yeah. And I had that taped under the bike, and or had it put under the bike later on the piece when the battery was getting low to about 20%. Had them put the USB into it, and then all you had to do was make sure you just click the right button straight away, because if you click the wrong button, it'd delete the file. And so for me, it was just charge it on the run, and then I knew that once it was fully charged again, that it would last for the 7 or 8 hours to the end. So we pulled it all off, and off we went. So
awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's good, mate. And so Roll Easy says on Instagram, how do you juggle family time and work commitments in cycling? You know, in terms of training and just eating the right food and stuff, you know?
The reality, I think, is to do this late in the piece, cycling took the priority. My kids and my wife were good about that. I've also got the flexibility with my kind of work is that I knew that I could get out for bike rides, long rides, even certain times during the week. And that sort of pretty much started 10 weeks out. I just knew that I had a bit of a plan for 10 weeks out. Before that, my average for the year now has been 14 hours a week. And the thing I find is I ride when I can ride. Morning rides work, afternoon rides work, evening rides work. But there's nothing better than doing an evening ride on a Friday night and getting a 6-hour ride in, and that just bumps your average for the week up significantly. And then it's managing energy levels. You know? So my kids and my wife are understanding as to if I don't expend some energy, maybe I don't work as well, maybe I'm not as good around with them. And then work-wise for me, I'd had a sort of situation change with my one of my contracts, and so time had opened up. So when I knew that I was doing this, it was like, right, I can actually put the time and energy into it. But even then, it was probably only 20 hours on the bike. And it's never in balance. That's probably the reality. It's about sort of saying, well, if you're picking an event for yourself, how far out do you really need to commit to it? Yeah. What do you need to do beforehand to have yourself at a right sort of level? Yeah. And the conversations with family. My kids knew that the last 2 months would be more like an Olympic preparation, but I was never going to do that long term. And even right now, I'll probably go back to riding 10 hours a week. Yep. And I'll do that for the next 3 or 4 months and assess things from there. So I think having a pretty clear plan and knowing what works for you, and nutrition-wise, for me, it's critical being able to fuel your efforts and energies, but you can't go flat out all year round. You can't burn the candle at both ends all year round. Yeah. So for me, it's like that's my project. That's been my project for this year. Yeah. Yeah. Now I'll take it easy. Yeah.
What techniques did you use on the bike to keep your mind on the job? Like I'm sure there were moments where you said, "I just can't continue." What techniques did you do to keep you going?
Yeah. Okay. So my simple one that I learnt years ago was to, rather than sort of going more internal and focusing harder on the task, spread your awareness, if that makes sense for people. I started sort of saying, well, I'll take notice of the wind going past me, I'll take notice of the track, I'll take notice of people around, I'll take notice of what's being said. And as much as I wouldn't pick up on everything, just getting out of my own head, out of my own body. So the way I think of it this way is, you've only got so much mental energy, and if you direct your mental energy to things that mean that the energy for monitoring pain or the energy for monitoring fatigue is less, then the reality is, if it is less concentration on it, it seems less. So the body's still doing what it's doing. So I did that a lot. It wasn't perfect all the time. The other one for me was making sure that I didn't think too big about it all. So I started out with the intent of 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. And the last 6 hours was always going to be hour. So having that in my mind. And then the other part too was just looking forward to the little wins. Moments where you're riding better, I sort of went with it, and a mate of mine on the sideline, knew that. And his whole thing was, when you're on a roll, go with it. And when you're not on a roll, don't stress about it. So the physiology of it all for me is your body's not just a mechanical metronome. And so when I was up, I just followed it, and when I was down, I just let it happen,
24 hours, 836 kilometres. How much money did you end up raising?
Unofficially, behind the scenes, 37,000. 37,000. And we're going to have one more little push with, I think, the Rapha pop-up shop in the city is going to host a night on the 14th where maybe we'll raise another 5 or 10 grand that night. And so, yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
That is amazing. And it's 519 miles for those people watching overseas, and a new Australian record.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, were you going for the world record? Did you think you had a real chance at the world
before setting out? Yeah, definitely. Everything I'd done in terms of my sums and calculations and practice and all that sort of stuff was I felt 900 was possible for me. And you don't sort of, I certainly didn't put out the idea of attempting 900 just for no reason. It was a realistic challenge, but also to sharpen my focus as well. But I did realise after, I think it was the 14, 15 hour mark, that I was really struggling to stay on that speed anywhere near it. And it was surging to get the speed, and that was really problematic. And there's a lot of lessons, I suppose, in terms of pacing early, but the thing for me was once I sort of started to realise that sort of 820, 840, 850 mark was still achievable, and I didn't think about it wasn't an Australian record I was thinking about, but it became, right, well, I'm going to get past 800, it's just how far can I get past 800?
Yeah. At what stage did you know that you weren't going to get the world record, and then you were aiming for the 800?
Yeah, look, I think for me around the 10-hour mark, I still sort of had in my mind that it was achievable.
Yeah.
But it was going to take, you know, something that I just didn't really know how it was going to play out. And I think, you know, it was interesting having the support team on the side, and you know, they were conscious of the speed I needed to do. We had the digital board there by that stage that was obviously working, and even guys like Jesse Carlson who were sort of giving me sort of instruction and all that sort of stuff. It was clear it was still possible, but the thing that I was noticing big time for myself was the lap speed that I was doing when I sort of just relaxed into things was probably, you know, that 35, 34, 33 sort of stuff. And that's when I started going, well, geez, there's a long time here now where I'm going to be spending at these sort of speeds unless I can find a way to will myself up to the higher speeds. So I'd have a moment where I'd surge it up, I'd get it to 38 average for a lap, you know, I'd hold that for maybe 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it'd start to wash back off. Yeah. And then I'd see the projection and I'd go, right, I'm now only getting it to 900 as a projection, and then it's coming back pretty quickly, and then I'm only getting it to 880 as a projection. So, yeah. So from that 8-hour, 10-hour mark, I sort of knew that it was going to become a huge effort. Yeah. And then really around the 14, 15-hour mark, I sort of pretty much resigned myself to the fact that 900 probably wasn't plausible, unless somehow I was going to find energy stores that, you know, just hadn't been there for the last 5 hours before that.
Yeah, right, okay. So you started off quite fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, for most people to do an hour at 39k an hour, it's a huge achievement, right? Let alone 24 hours. You started off pretty fast, and then we noticed after about 5 hours that you dropped down to about 35. Was that planned?
Yeah, in my mind it was 4 parts to it, 6-hour chunks. Yeah. And I knew that the first 2 of those chunks I could control and manage myself really well, and so the idea for me was I wanted to be sensible when I kicked off at the beginning, but I really wanted to make sure that I had my average in my mind was I wanted to hit sort of that 5-6 hour mark, you know, at 40k average. Yeah. And so I figured that from that point on then I'd be getting ready for the evening. Yeah. And the evening thing for me was what I'd found in tests was once the temperature dropped, the speed was hard anyway, and add to that you're normally asleep, add to that physical effort of already going 10 or 12 hours. I just figured that overnight it was going to be a 35, 34 average. Yeah. And it's interesting looking back on the data now, you know, like I get pretty much to 200, just beyond 200, and I'm well and truly as an average still sitting at 38.8, 38.5. Yeah. And I thought that would give me enough up my sleeve to be not conservative, but just deal with whatever came during the night. Yeah. Unfortunately, my lap times were starting to drop below even 35, and there was just things. I mean, the bouncing and bumpiness of the track just made it really hard. There was more energy zapping than I anticipated. Yeah. And what I was finding was I was often not settled on the seat, and the bars and forearms were really taking a pounding, but it meant that you constantly had extra weight in your legs. You know? So I ended up producing, I thought 270 watts would be what I'd have to do to sit on those speeds, but I ended up producing, you know, normalised power of 289, and I reckon that's just loading the pedals, loading the bike, where you're almost holding yourself off the saddle at certain times through the corners and all that sort of stuff, which is just not ideal, you know.
Yeah. Final question, mate. When do you think the next one, or this is the second last question, when will the next one be?
My gut feel is I have to do it next year, and I'd either do it later in the year, being October, November again, or I might do it sometime before winter. You know, sets in too much. So if it was indoors, it wouldn't really matter too much. It could be in the middle of the year. I do like that October and November period because you've come through a good period of just riding Ks, doing indoor work. And it's just starting to heat up, so you know, but there's a little footnote to that. If certain things don't repair, it'll be game off.
Oh, really? I don't think I'll ask you a question about that. I'm sure your crutch is feeling it.
Mate, look, let's just say black and blue was what I said when I came out of the shower with my wife, and she laughed and she just showed me, and she's gone, oh shit, that's pretty bad.
You're kidding?
No, it's like I've had a vasectomy.
You are kidding.
It's all better now. I don't recommend, I mean, if you don't want to have any more kids, that's what my wife Melanie said when I told her, and she goes, oh, you've had 2 kids, so what's the big deal?
Well, it'd be interesting to see what seat you choose for the next event. Right.
I'd still go the same seat.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of the Cobb saddles.
Yeah.
Also a fan of the Adamos.
Yeah.
I've not tried the Physic one, that's the TT one, but I'm a fan of those cut out seats, the big cutouts.
Yeah.
The biggest one for me is I think they need to have even more cushioning on them.
Yep.
On a bumpy track, in particular.
Yeah.
The Cobb one probably for me could be a little bit wider.
Right.
I mean, I think I'd benefit from a little bit wider, and so as we know, saddles are personal. I love the Cobb saddle for that reason, but on the bouncy track, it just meant that you took a bit of a pounding.
Yeah. Did you use any chamois cream?
Lots.
Did you?
Yeah, at the start. And
which brand?
The Rapha chamois cream.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, at the start, lathered up plenty. And then probably found when I first changed to the road bike, I didn't use any there. But after I got off the road bike and got on the TT bike about an hour later, I was noticing that the setup was just different. I was raked a bit further over, and what was amazing was putting some chamois cream on and going, oh, it feels like a cloud, you know. And then late in the piece, I think in the last 3 hours, I went for chamois cream 2 more times with the guys, and I remember vividly being like 3 fingers into the jar and just going whack, and then coming out, I've just got chamois cream everywhere, and I'm trying to wipe it off my hand. I'm going, oh, well, I don't care now.
I could imagine, man. That'd be the last thing on your mind, eh?
Yeah. Well, the other part too is, going to the toilet. This is the whole thing. So everything was tender by that stage, but numb.
Yeah.
So going to the toilet was really painful.
Yeah.
And at one stage, I'm standing at the track going, I know I need to go, but nothing's coming out.
Yeah.
And then I got back on the bike, and then 15, 20 minutes later, I'm going, I've got to go again. Like, I've got to stop again. You know? So that's, I think, they're just the little things that you're just dealing with after that time.
How did you ward off cramp?
Or
did you get cramp?
No cramp. No, to be honest, that's where the thing about the track, I think, because of the nature of the surface, it meant that I wasn't able to fully drive like I would if you're on a different kind of road, and so muscly for me, tiring, yes, but it was more joint related, neck and shoulder related, seat related, as to limiting factors. You know? So if you had have said, well, was it your ability to physiologically push the pedals? No. So I don't think my muscles were ever in that state. And the reality is, I'd done some solid training, and I hadn't cramped on the bike for a long time, even in hot conditions. So so I think trained up to the point where that wasn't occurring. And you know what? I wasn't sweating a lot. Was the other part. It was only in the last hour that all of a sudden I started sweating, but the heat got. Sun came back out again. Yeah. So I never felt like I was in that sort of state of dehydration, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mate, thanks so much for your time. Good catching up.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
We're heading out to the race now. Excuse me. Southern Masters Cycling Club. They're holding a criterium every Thursday night. They don't allow GoPros, so I won't have the GoPros on tonight. This what's your name, Michael?
Nick Belichick.
Nick, that's right. Nick towed me out here. Yeah. Absolute legend. I made it out to the race because of this guy.
Having a ball.
Good on you, mate. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Mickey. How are you, mate? Nice kid.
Thank you.
How you feeling?
Good, yourself?
You gonna have a big race tonight? Don't get shy in front of the camera, brother. Don't get shy.
Just worry about the parole officer.
Mate, well raced tonight.
Thanks, mate.
How'd you go?
Second. Close second.
Good work. Good work. It was a really close sprint finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't close.
I think it was between the... Yeah, I know. Between the first four, it was a photo finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Very close.
Good on you, mate. Well raced.
Still like to get a win up, mate.
Yeah. Oh, well, next week, mate.
Next week.
Well done, boys.
Thank you.
G'day, guys. Just got back from Sandown, the A-grade criterium out there. I had a great race tonight. Got into a break of 7 riders and was pretty confident for the sprint, but when we came around the final turn, I realised that those 7 riders were actually quite a classy bunch of riders, and I just didn't have the legs, I got 4th in the end, and it was a bit of a photo finish. But yeah, look, great night, great race out there. Even though they don't let you put the GoPros on, I wish they would let me put the GoPros on, because it is such an awesome race out there. It would have been such great footage tonight, but such is life. But anyway, Hannah's parents bought us some bean bags for Christmas. I've got to show you these. I don't know if I've shown you in the last video, but so Big Mama bean bag. My friend Joel, I don't know if you've seen a previous vlog where I was in Perth, we're all lying on these bean bags out in the front yard. But these bean bags are pretty sick. I'm pretty excited about them. Hannah's bought 700 litres of beans. So we're just putting those in the bags now. This is actually going to be hilarious because I reckon beans are going to go everywhere.
Is this supposed to be out or in?
I don't know, show me.
Like, we're not supposed to hold it. That's tears.
No, that is tears, yeah. I think just hold that opening. So show us. So hold that opening as wide as you can, apart. That's it.
Okay.
Alright, I'll get the next
Fill me
bag.
up.
How big are they? 7? Yeah, so it's 100 litres. Alright, shit's going to get real here. I'll cut a corner off.